Uncle, leave our house right now. If you say one more filthy word to my mother, I swear you'll regret it. Her fists were clenched at her sides. She had never spoken so boldly to an elder before, but in that moment, her love for her mother empowered any fear. Mazude looked taken aback by Uzoma's boldness. You are threatening me, Ekwa? He asked, narrowing his eyes at her. You, a small girl, dare to threaten me? Have you forgotten I am the head of this family now? On a quiet evening in Ibuku village, Uzoma sat on the front step of her mother's house, watching the sun cast long shadows over the dusty road. The scent of wood smoke and simmering soup drifted from the kitchen window as her mother, Nne Uzoma, whose name was Oluchi, finished preparing their dinner. It was a small, simple house made of concrete blocks with a tin roof, modest but well kept. Uzoma glanced at the faded photograph of her late father hanging by the doorway. Her heart heavy with memories. She lost her father when she was only a little girl, and since then, it had been just Uzoma and her mother supporting each other in every way. Despite the hardships, Uzoma grew into a beautiful and kind-hearted young woman in her early 20s. She was known throughout Ibuku for her warm smile and caring nature. If an elderly neighbor needed help carrying produce from the market, Uzoma was the first to volunteer. If a child in the village scraped a knee, Uzoma would gently clean and bandage it, often offering a sweet word to stop the tears. Everyone admired her for being respectful and humble, calling her Nwa Marama, a child of beauty and goodness, both inside and out. Uzoma's mother, Oluchi, worked hard every day to make ends meet. She farmed a small piece of land left to her by her late husband and sold vegetables at the local market. Uzoma would often join her mother at the market after finishing her chores at home. Together, under the shade of a broad umbrella, they sold fresh tomatoes, yams, and greens. They did not have much money, but they had each other. In the evenings, they would sit outside their home, enjoying the cool breeze and sharing stories. Oluchi would tell Uzoma how proud her father would have been of the kind of woman Uzoma had become. Those moments were precious and gave them the strength to face each day. However, life had not been entirely peaceful for the two women. There was a shadow looming over their little family. Uzoma's uncle, Mazude. Mazude was her late father's younger brother. After Uzoma's father passed away, Mazude had been quick to claim that because Oluchi had no son, all of her husband's property should pass to the male relatives. In many parts of the region, traditions about inheritance were still unfair to women, and Mazude took advantage of those customs. He seized the best piece of farmland that Uzoma's father left behind, a plot that Oluchi had hoped to cultivate to secure their food and income. Oluchi had fought against this injustice as best as she could. She pleaded with the elders of the village and tried to assert her right, but Mazude was a sly man with a sharp tongue. He convinced some of the elders that he was only acting in the family's interest. A woman cannot own land in our tradition, he argued to anyone who would listen, clapping his hands dramatically. My brother left no son. It is my duty, as his only brother, to take care of the land. By take care, of course, he meant taking it for himself. Uzoma remembered the day he came with 2 men to force them off that land. She had been about 15 at the time, old enough to understand what was happening. Mazude arrived with a boastful swagger, waving a piece of paper that he claimed was proof of his ownership now. Oluchi stood her ground at the edge of the field, refusing to move aside. Ude, you know this is wrong, Oluchi cried out, holding Uzoma protectively behind her. My husband, your brother, wanted us to use this land. He wanted his wife and daughter to be provided for. How can you do this to us, Ude? Maazi Ude's face twisted into a sneer. He was a stout man with graying hair and cold, beady eyes. He pointed a finger at Oluchi. Woman, you have no son to inherit. You cannot pretend to be the head of this family. If you know what is good for you, leave now, or I will have you dragged away. This land belongs to me now. He barked. Uzoma, unable to keep silent, stepped out from behind her mother. With tears in her eyes and anger in her voice, she shouted, Uncle, please, this is all we have. Don't do this to us. Papa wouldn't want you to treat us this way. For a brief moment, a flash of guilt crossed Maazi Ude's face, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. He hardened his expression. Little girl, he said, you know nothing. Go home and be thankful I am leaving you and your mother with at least the house you live in. Then he motioned to the two men with him, likely thugs from another village, and they advanced to push Oluchi and Uzoma aside. Oluchi held Uzoma's hand tightly, her voice cracking. Uzoma, let us go. We will find a way. God will fight for us. She whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Uzoma was shaking with anger and sorrow, as they had no choice but to leave and watch from a distance as Maazi Ude took possession of their field. That evening, Uzoma and her mother cried together in their home, clinging to one another. Uzoma promised herself that somehow, someday, she would make her uncle understand the pain he had caused. Even after that incident, Maazi Ude did not stop tormenting them. In the years that followed, he would show up at their house unannounced under the guise of checking on them, only to taunt Oluchi. Sometimes, he would remark on how weak women were or how pitiable their situation was without a man to support them. Uzoma often had to bite her tongue to keep from yelling at him to leave. She respected her elders, as her mother taught her, but Maazi Ude's behavior tested her limits. One fateful afternoon, Maazi Ude crossed the line. Uzoma was returning from the market when she heard heated voices inside their home. She recognized her mother's voice and Maazi Ude's. Worried, she hurried inside. There stood Maazi Ude, towering over Oluchi in their small living room, a nasty smile on his face. Oluchi looked enraged and also a bit frightened. What is going on, Mama? Uzoma asked, stepping between her mother and Maazi instinctively. Oluchi took a shaky breath. He has come to make more threats, she said bitterly, wiping her forehead with the end of her wrapper. Maazi Ude chuckled, not even ashamed that Uzoma caught him. He looked at Uzoma with a sly grin. Ah, Uzo, you are back. Good. Perhaps you can talk sense into your mother. I came with a generous offer for her. We don't want anything from you, uncle, Uzoma snapped, her heart pounding. After all you have taken, you still have the nerve to come here? Maazi Ude raised his hands as if in surrender. Calm down, my dear niece. You see, I'm only thinking of your welfare. He turned his gaze back to Oluchi and spoke in a tone dripping with insincerity. Oluchi, you said you struggled to pay Uzoma's school fees and put food on the table. Eh? I can help you for a price, Sha. Oluchi glared at him, saying nothing. Uzoma felt her mother's hand on her shoulder, as if cautioning her to stay calm. But Uzoma could see the fear and disgust in her mother's eyes. Maazi Ude continued, taking a step forward. It's a simple arrangement. You become close to me, and I will make sure both of you never suffer. I can give you back the land if you are good to me, oh. He said these words with a smile, his meaning all too clear. Uzoma's eyes widened in outrage. He was essentially asking her mother to become his side chick, his mistress, in exchange for financial support. It was an insult not only to her mother's dignity, but also to the memory of Uzoma's father. Oluchi's face contorted with anger. Ude, Oluchi shouted, raising a hand as though she might slap him. How dare you? You came into my home and said this wicked nonsense to me? You're my late husband's brother. Have you no shame? Mazude's expression turned cold and dark. I'm offering you a way out of your misery, woman. You should be grateful. Many women would jump at such opportunity to ensure a good life for their child. Uzoma could not hold back any longer. She stepped forward and, in a trembling voice filled with fury, said, Uncle, leave our house right now. If you say one more filthy word to my mother, I swear you'll regret it. Her fists were clenched at her sides. She had never spoken so boldly to an elder before, but in that moment, her love for her mother empowered any fear. Mazude looked taken aback by Uzoma's boldness. You are threatening me, Ekwa? He asked, narrowing his eyes at her. You, a small girl, dare to threaten me? Have you forgotten I am the head of this family now? You are not the head of anything in this house, Uzoma fired back, her voice steady even as her heart thumped wildly in her chest. You lost that respect when you started treating us like that. We don't need your help. Don't ever come here and harass my mother again. I won't be so polite next time. Oluchi, though still shaking with anger, placed a protective hand on Uzoma's shoulder, silently supporting everything her daughter said. For a moment, Mazude's face contorted as if he might lash out in anger. The room was silent except for the heavy breathing of all three. Finally, he let out a harsh, humorless laugh. So, this is how it is, eh? Fine. Have it your way. But don't come begging me when life becomes too hard. And you, Uzoma, he snarled, pointing a finger at her. You will wish you never spoke to me like that. Mark my words. With that, he turned on his heel and stormed out, slamming the door behind him so hard that a framed picture on the wall rattled and fell to the floor, the glass shattering. Uzoma exhaled shakily. She didn't even realize she was holding her breath. Oluchi pulled her into a tight hug. My daughter, thank you, Oluchi whispered, her voice breaking. You shouldn't have had to do that, but thank you. God bless you. I'm so proud of you. Uzoma hugged her mother back, feeling the older woman trembling in her arms. Mama, I couldn't let him speak to you that way. It's okay. He's gone now, she said softly. But in her heart, Uzoma felt a pang of worry. The look in her uncle's eyes as he left was full of venom. She had never seen him look that angry. She prayed silently that he would just stay away and not trouble them again. True to her hopes, Mazude stayed away for some time after that confrontation. In the weeks that followed, Uzoma and her mother tried to return to a normal life. They focused on their small vegetable business and on caring for each other. Still, Uzoma could not completely shake off the unease. Sometimes, late at night, she would remember her uncle's final words. You will wish you never spoke to me like that. In those moments, she would feel a chill of fear, but she always whispered a prayer and reminded herself that she and her mother had done nothing wrong. God would protect them, she believed. Life went on, and soon the dry season gave way to the early rains. Ibuku became alive with the scent of wet earth and blossoming flowers. It was during this season of renewal that love found its way into Uzoma's life. One sunny afternoon, Uzoma was at the market helping her mother. Their store was neatly arranged with piles of fresh ube, African pear, ripe plantains, and bitter leaf tied in bundles. Uzoma's cheerful voice rang out as she greeted customers, switching easily between Igbo and English as needed, ensuring everyone felt welcome. Ah, Auntie Ngozi, come buy our fresh tomatoes, oh. They're as red as roses today. Uzoma called out playfully to a customer, holding up a basket of plum tomatoes. The market was bustling with activity, traders calling out their wares, customers haggling over prices, and children weaving between stalls with baskets. As Uzoma handed a bag of vegetables to one buyer, she noticed a young man approaching their store. He was tall, well-dressed, and had a warm, polite smile. He looked to be in his mid-20s and carried himself with a quiet confidence. Uzoma didn't recognize him as a regular from the village. Perhaps he was a visitor or someone's relative from the city, she thought. The young man stopped in front of their store and greeted them in Igbo. Ndewo no. Uzoma returned the greeting with a smile. Ndewo, good afternoon. Do you want to buy vegetables? Before he could answer, Oluchi stepped forward with a welcoming grin, always happy to gain a new customer. Good afternoon, my son. You are welcome. Our produce is very fresh. What would you like? The man's eyes flickered to Uzoma for a second, and then he addressed her mother respectfully. Mama, I want to buy some yams and maybe a bunch of plantains. I'm visiting from the city, and my mother asked me to bring back some good yams from Ibuku. He had a gentle voice and spoke Igbo with a city accent. As Oluchi and Uzoma helped him select a few nice yams, the man introduced himself. My name is Uche, he said, offering a handshake to Oluchi and then Uzoma. My family is originally from this village, but I've been in Enugu for a long time. I came home for a little visit. Oluchi's face lit up in recognition. Uche, are you by any chance Ngozi and Ima's son? They said their son was coming back home this month. Uche nodded with a broad smile. Yes, Ngozi is my mother. You know my parents? Know them? Ha! We are from the same village. Your mother and I used to fetch water together as girls. Oluchi laughed. Oh, what a small world. No wonder you came straight to our store. Your mother must have told you where to find me. Uche chuckled. Actually, Mama did mention that her friend sells the best produce in the market. I figured this must be the place. He glanced again shyly at Uzoma, who had been quietly gathering the items he requested. She handed the yams and plantains to Uche, and as she did, their eyes met for a brief moment. Uzoma felt a flutter in her stomach and quickly looked away, focusing on calculating the price. It's 4,000 naira for everything, she said softly. Uche paid for the goods and thanked them. Before leaving, he smiled at Uzoma and said, It was nice meeting you. I didn't catch your name. She found herself smiling back. I'm Uzoma. Uzoma, he repeated, as if testing how her name felt on his tongue. That's a lovely name. Perhaps I'll see you again, Uzoma. With a polite nod to Oluchi and one last glance at Uzoma, Uche headed off into the crowd, carrying his purchase. Uzoma watched him go, feeling an unexpected warmth in her cheeks. She realized she had been holding her breath and let it out slowly. Oluchi gave her a knowing look and a smile tugged at her lips. My dear, is everything all right? She teased gently. Uzoma busied herself rearranging a pile of papers to hide her embarrassment. Yes, Mama. Why do you ask? Oh, nothing, no. Her mother replied, still smiling. It's just nice to see you talking to a polite young man for a change. Uche seems like a good boy. His parents are good people too. Uzoma tried to act unconcerned, but inside, her heart was fluttering with excitement. The way Uche had looked at her, kind and respectful, was different from other men she had met. And he remembered my name. She thought with a small grin when her mother wasn't looking. In the days that followed, Uzoma found herself crossing paths with Uche more often. Ibuku was not a very large village, so news of Uche's visit spread quickly. He had been away for years working in the city, and now that he was back, many people wanted to greet him or seek favors. Uzoma would occasionally see him at the small church on Sundays, or driving by in his car on the village's main road. One evening, as the sky turned orange with sunset, Uzoma balanced a basin of freshly washed clothes on her hip and headed to the backyard. To her surprise, she saw Uche standing by the low fence that separated her house from the footpath. He was talking with a neighbor, but when he noticed Uzoma, he gave a friendly wave. She set down the basin and walked over to greet him. "Good evening, Uche. How are you?" "I'm fine, Uzoma. I hope I'm not bothering you. I was just visiting my aunt who lives across the path, and I remembered your house was nearby," Uche said, sounding a little nervous but pleased to see her. "It's no bother at all," Uzoma responded, feeling her heart skip a beat at the thought that I remembered where she lived. "How is your family?" "They are doing well. My mother has hardly let me rest since I got back. She has me running errands and visiting every relative we have," Uche joked, rolling his eyes playfully. "But I don't mind. It's good to be home and reconnect with everyone." They talked for a while by the fence, the conversation flowing easily. Uche told her about his job in Enugu City. He worked as an electrical engineer for a company there. Uzoma shared little bits about her life in the village, how she helped her mom and her hopes of maybe learning a skilled trade one day, like tailoring. She admitted she had finished secondary school but couldn't afford college, so she was considering vocational training. Uche listened with interest and encouragement. "You are a very smart girl and capable, Uzo," he said sincerely. "Any field you go into, you will do well. And if you ever need any help or advice about city life or anything, you can always reach out to me. I've seen how hardworking you are at the market. That determination will carry you far." Uzoma smiled wildly. "Thank you, Uche. That means a lot." Just then, Oluchi came outside looking for her daughter. She spotted Uche and grinned broadly. "Ah, Uche, welcome, my son. Have you eaten? Come inside. You must greet an elder properly," she insisted, wiping her hands on her apron. "Mama, he might be busy," Uzoma started to say, but Uche laughed. "I can't say no to an invitation like that," he said cheerfully. "Besides, I would love to taste whatever smells so good from your kitchen, ma." They all went inside. Oluchi was more than happy to offer Uche a bowl of ora soup, and garri that she had cooked. As he ate, she prepared him with questions about his work, his parents, and life in the city. Uzoma sat quietly, listening and feeling content just to have him there with them. It felt as if an old friend had come to visit, even though they had only met recently. After dinner, Uche helped clear the dishes despite Oluchi's protest that a guest shouldn't have to work. This impressed Oluchi immensely. "A man who can enter the kitchen is a blessing," she joked. Uche blushed and said his mother taught him to always help out. As dusk settled fully into night, Uche thanked them for the hospitality and said he should head home. At the doorway, he turned to Uzoma and said softly, "Will you be at the market tomorrow? I would like to stop by again." Uzoma nodded, trying not to grin too widely. "Yes, I'll be there. Safe journey home, Uche." After he left, Oluchi nudged her daughter playfully. "My dear, that young man has his eyes on you." She teased. "Mama," Uzoma exclaimed, though she couldn't help laughing. "We are just talking, no. He's friendly, nothing more." "I was young once too, you know," Oluchi said with a wink. "It's all right. I like him. Oh, he's respectful and kind. And did you see the way he was looking at you? Ah, our Uzoma will soon bring home a husband at this rate." Uzoma's face grew warm. "Mama, stop now. It's not like that yet," she murmured, though the idea made her heart sour. Could it be true that Uche liked her in that way? She went to bed that night with a smile, whispering a prayer of thanks for meeting someone like him. Over the next few weeks, Uzoma and Uche saw each other frequently. Uche would come to the market store almost every other day, sometimes buying small things just as an excuse to chat. Other times, he invited Uzoma on walks around the village in the evenings. They would stroll past the old mango tree by the village square, talking about everything from their childhood memories to their dreams for the future. Uzoma felt comfortable with Uche. He made her laugh and listened to her thoughts as if they were the most important things in the world. It wasn't long before it was clear to everyone around that Uzoma and Uche were in love. Neighbors would see them walking together and smile knowingly. Some of Uzoma's age mates in the village teased her lightly about her city husband. Even Mazude, who had been quiet for a while, got wind of this new development. One morning, as Uzoma carried a basket of yams on her head from the market back home, her friend Amaka rushed up to her, slightly out of breath. Uzoma, is it true what I heard? Amaka asked excitedly. Uzoma shifted the basket weight slightly and gave her friend a curious smile. I don't know, Amaka. What did you hear? That a certain fine young man from Enugu has been following you around like a lost puppy, Amaka said, giggling. They say he's even talking about marrying you. Uzoma, you did not tell me. You have caught a big fish, oh. Uzoma nearly tripped over a stone in surprise. Marry? Who is talking about marriage? She felt her cheeks flame as Amaka laughed. So, it's true you have him then? Whether marriage or not, something is happening, Abi? Amaka pressed. Uzoma tried to remain composed. Uche and I, we like each other, yes. He's been very good to me and Mama, but I don't know about marriage yet though. We are still getting to know each other, that's all. Amaka nudged her. Well, I won't be surprised if he proposed soon. You seem serious, and honestly, we are all happy for you. You deserve a good man who loves you. Uzoma smiled gratefully. Thank you, my friend. By the time Uzoma reached home that day, though, she found her mind wandering to what Amaka had said. Was Uche thinking of marriage? He had expressed that he wanted a serious relationship, and I had even visited a few times to greet her mother respectfully, which in Igbo culture was a sign of serious intention. Oluchi liked him a lot and often teased Uzoma that Uche was husband material. Under a tall guava tree in their front yard, Uzoma sat down the basket of yams. She looked up at the sky, which was a brilliant blue, and felt happiness swell in her chest. For the first time in a long while, things seemed to be going well. She had met a wonderful man who cared for her, and maybe soon, she and her mother would not have to worry so much about the future. But that peaceful happiness was not to last. In the shadows, Mazude's jealousy and resentment grew. He had been hearing the village gossip as well, and it made his blood boil to think that Uzoma, the girl who defied him, might soon marry into wealth and prosperity. If Uzoma married Uche, a successful city man, then she and her mother would be secure. They might even reclaim the status in the village that Mazude had tried to strip away. Worse, from his perspective, they would no longer live in hardship, which was something he took twisted pleasure in seeing. Mazude sat in his compound one evening, stewing over these thoughts. His wife was frying garri in the backyard, and his children, 2 boys in their late teens, were inside playing a loud radio. Ude didn't care about any of that at the moment. He was consumed by an ugly envy. Why should Uzoma, the daughter of his late brother, get a better life than his own family? He muttered to himself, recalling how she had spoken to him with such disrespect. That girl thinks she has won, he hissed under his breath. We will see who has the last laugh. Mazude decided to interfere. The next day, he set out to find Uche and pointing the young man's mind against Uzoma. He caught sight of Uche in the late afternoon near the village square. Uche had just finished dropping off some supplies at the local clinic. He had volunteered to help since he had a car. As Uche walked back toward his family home, Mazude intercepted him. Uche, my son, wait, let us talk. Mazude called out, waving and smiling as if in friendly greeting. Uche recognized him as one of the elders and respectfully stopped. Good afternoon, sir, he said politely. Mazude placed a hand on Uche's shoulder in a familiar way. I have been meaning to welcome you back properly since I heard you were in town. I am Mazude, the younger brother of late Mr. Okeke, Uzoma's father. Oh, yes, I've heard of you, Mazude. Uche said, trying to remain courteous, even though he felt a slight discomfort at the man's sudden friendliness. It's good to meet you, sir. And you, my boy, I hear you have been spending time with Uzoma. Mazude said casually, his eyes keenly observing Uche's reaction. Uche nodded, smiling a little. Yes, Uzoma is a very good friend of mine. He was modest in his words, but the warmth in his voice when he spoke her name did not escape Ude. Mazude's smile tightened. He leaned in as if to share a secret. You seem like a sensible young man, Uche. So, I feel it's my duty to warn you. Since I was your father's friend and I am family to Uzoma, perhaps you should be careful with that girl. Uche frowned in confusion. Be careful? I'm not sure I understand, sir. Mazude sighed dramatically and took a half step closer, lowering his voice. There are things you don't know about Uzoma and her mother. People may not tell you openly, but there have been incidents, strange things. I'm telling you, for your own good, my son, that girl is possessed by dark spirits. Uche blinked in astonishment. Possessed? With all due respect, sir, that's a very serious thing to say about someone. Uzoma doesn't seem... Mazude held up his hand to stop Uche. He put on a grave expression. I know she seems normal. That is how those kinds of people are. They appear innocent. But ask yourself, why is it that since her father died, nothing good has happened in that family? Her mother is suffering, and any man who ever showed interest in Uzoma ended up falling ill or even having accidents. The villagers whisper that Uzoma has a marine spirit husband that chases real men away. It is a curse. Uche stared at Mazude, taken aback. He had had superstitions before, but nothing like this about Uzoma. She had never mentioned any previous suitors or curses, and indeed, Uche himself had been perfectly fine since knowing her. He felt a surge of anger at the accusations. This sounded more like malicious gossip than truth. Sir, Uche said firmly, I don't believe such things about Uzoma. She's a good person, and I have never seen anything strange around her. Maybe people are just saying things because they don't understand their situation. Mazude clicked his tongue and shook his head sadly. Oh, you won't believe me. Young people never listen, but I felt I should at least warn you. Time will tell. Just be careful, that's all. He patted Uche's shoulder as if in concern, but there was a slight glint in his eyes. Thank you for your concern, Uche replied politely, trying not to show his irritation. But I trust Uzoma. With that, Uche excused himself and walked away, leaving Mazude standing alone. Uche's heart was pounding, partly from anger at the man's word and partly from a sliver of doubt that had tried to creep in despite himself. Why would he lie about his own niece? Uche wondered. The claim was so outrageous that Uche wanted to dismiss it entirely, yet he couldn't help feeling disturbed that someone would spread such rumors. That evening, Uche visited Uzoma and his mother again, and he was as warm and kind as always. He didn't mention the conversation with Mazude, but Uzoma sensed something was off. During a quiet moment, when Oluchi was out of earshot, Uzoma gently asked him, Are you okay? You seem a little distracted tonight. Uzoma looked into her concerned eyes and considered telling her about Mazude's words, but he decided against it. He didn't want to upset her or even give life to ugly rumors. Instead, he smiled and said, I'm all right, truly. Just thinking about my return to the city soon. My leave from work will end next week. Uzoma felt a small pang at the reminder that Uche would soon leave Ibuku to go back to Enugu. They both knew this day was coming. I will miss you, she said softly, looking down at her hands. Mama and I have gotten used to having you around. I will miss you too, Uzo, Uche said, reaching out to hold her hand gently. But I promise, this won't be the end. I will come back to visit as often as I can, and we can talk on the phone every day, okay? Uzoma nodded, smiling a bit sadly. Okay. As he left that night, he gave her a small wrapped gift, a beautiful scarf he had bought for her in town, and told her he would see her once more before he departed for the city. Uzoma watched him drive away under the silvery light of the moon, her heart heavy at the thought of saying goodbye, but also filled with hope for the future they might share. Meanwhile, Mazude was fuming. His attempts to scare Uche away had clearly failed. He saw with his own eyes how Uche still visited Uzoma's home. He realized that simple lies and gossip would not break their bond. If anything, he worried that Uche might mention his warning to Uzoma or others, and then everyone would say Mazude's ill intent. He needed to act more decisively and secretly. That was when a truly wicked idea took root in Mazude's mind. If he couldn't manipulate Uche with words, he would use darkness itself to destroy Uzoma's chances of happiness. He decided to seek out help from a fearsome source that many desperate people in the region whispered about, an evil dibia, a sorcerer, or witch doctor known for powerful and malignant charms. Late one night, when even crickets had hushed in the thick humid air, Mazude crept out of his home. He hadn't told anyone where he was going, not even his wife. Under his arm, he carried a small bundle. It contained, among other things, a piece of cloth that he had secretly taken from Uzoma's clothesline weeks ago, a lock of her hair he had snatched from an old hairbrush tossed behind their house, and some money. His face was set with grim determination as he slipped into the darkness, heading towards the outskirts of Ibuku. The evil Dibia he sought was said to live deep in the bush beyond the neighboring village. People rarely spoke of him openly, but Mazude had heard whispers. They said this Dibia could make powerful charms for those willing to pay the price, but his magic was the kind that come with grave risks and consequences. Desperate and envious, Mazude was willing to risk anything. For hours, Mazude walked along a narrow footpath lit only by the thin slice of moon above. Every snap of a twig or hoot of an owl made his heart race, but he pressed on. Finally, he reached a clearing where an ancient Iroko tree towered above a small mud hut. The hut was decorated with strange symbols painted in white and red, and animal skulls, perhaps of goats or monkeys, hung from the branches of the tree, swaying gently. A sickly sweet smell of herbs and something burning filled the air. Mazude hesitated for a moment, fear gripping him now that he was actually here. But the thought of Uzoma possibly marrying Uche and living a happy life while he remained bitter drove him onward. He cleared his throat and called out gently, "Dibia, I seek your help." For a moment, only the sound of rustling leaves answered. Then the door of the hut creaked open and a hunched figure emerged. The Dibia was an old man with a face carved by deep wrinkles and eyes that gleamed unnaturally in the darkness. He wore a black robe and around his neck hung a necklace of animal teeth. In one hand, he held a staff adorned with feathers. "You disturb my night, Mazude," the Dibia said in a raspy voice, startling Ude. How did this man know his name? Perhaps the spirit told him, or he simply recognized Ude by face. Either way, it sent a shiver through Ude's spine. "What brings you here at this hour? Speak if you dare to pay my price." Mazude stepped forward, clutching the bundle tightly. "Great Dibia, I need a solution to a problem. My brother's daughter Uzoma, she and her mother have caused me great trouble. That girl is standing in the way of my plans. I want her to suffer, to be seen as the cursed being that she is." The old man's lips curled in a half smile, revealing a few missing teeth. "Cursed being, you say? Go on." "I want no man to ever go near her. Mazude hissed, anger rising in him as he thought of Uzoma's happiness. She is too beautiful, too favored. Make her beauty turn to ugliness in the eyes of any suitor who looks at her. Let her face become a thing of nightmares to any man who would desire her. Let them run in fear. The Dibia let out a low chuckle, a sound that made the night seem colder. You seek a cause of illusion and loneliness, he groaned. Such a dark request for one's own blood. Are you sure, Ude? Once done, it cannot be easily undone. Mazude nodded. I am sure. Just tell me what it will cost. The Dibia's glowing eyes flicked to the bundle Ude carried. What have you brought me? Quickly, Mazude opened the bundle on the ground, revealing the scrap of Uzoma's clothes, the small tuft of her hair, and money, crisp naira notes, as an offering. The Dibia knelt slowly, picking up the piece of clothes and hair. He sniffed them and closed his eyes, chanting under his breath. The forest seemed to respond. Leaves rustled without wind, and a nearby owl gave a prolonged hoot. This would do, the Dibia finally said. He scooped the money without even counting it and tucked it into his robes. The girl's essence is in these items. It will strengthen the cause. Now stand and do not interfere. Mazude stepped back, his heart thudding. The Dibia began to perform the ritual. He drew a circle on the ground with white chalk like powder and placed the clothes and hair at its center. From inside his hut, he brought out a small earthenware pot. From the pot, he drew out some foul-smelling concoction and sprinkled it on the items, then added a pinch of red powder. He started chanting in a language Mazude did not understand, and a cake form of Igbo or some spirit tongue. The night seemed to grow thicker and darker around them. As the chants grew louder, the Dibia's voice changed, sounding deeper and echoing as if more than one voice spoke through him. Mazude felt an urge to cover his ears, but he dared not move. Suddenly, the items in the circle caught fire with an airy green flame. Mazude jumped, but the Dibia gestured for him to stay still. The flames didn't burn the clothes or hair in a normal way. Instead of turning them to ashes, the items seemed to melt into the ground as the flame died out. The Dibia then produced a small wooden mask, crudely carved to resemble a twisted, monstrous face with cowrie shells for eyes. He placed this mask into the center of the circle where the items had been. Dipping his finger into some white chalk, the Dibia drew a symbol onto the forehead of the mask. He then picked up the mask and presented it to Mazude. It is done, the Dibia said, voice hoarse from the chanting. Take this mask and bury it near the entrance of the girl's home under the cover of night. As long as it remains buried there, any man who looks upon Uzoma with love or desire in his heart will instead see their worst fear. Her face will appear to them as a terrifying horror, the embodiment of their nightmares. They will flee from her in terror. She will never marry. She will never know a man's love. Mazude took the mask carefully. It felt unnaturally cold to the touch. He wrapped it back in the cloth he brought. Thank you, he said, feeling both excitement and fear. And she wouldn't be physically harmed, right? I just want to ruin her chances, not kill her. The Dibia gave a dismissive wave. The cause targets her beauty and others' perception of her. It will not harm her body directly, but be warned. Tampering with a person's destiny can draw unforeseen consequences. The spirits will take their due eventually. Mazude barely paid attention to that last warning. He was already imagining Uzoma's despair and confusion when her suitors will start running from her. It's her destiny to be cursed then, he muttered. He turned to the Dibia again and hurried away, anxious to get back before dawn. Before entering his own compound, Mazude sneaked to Uzoma's home. The village was dark and silent. He crept to a small bush by the gate of their house, where they wouldn't notice disturbed soil easily. and there he dug a shallow hole. He placed the small wooden mask charm inside and covered it with dirt and leaves. It was done. Mazude slunk back to his house with a grim smile on his face, unseen by anyone in the sleeping village. A few days later, Uche returned to Ibuku from Enugu for a weekend visit. Just as he had promised, Uzoma was overjoyed to hear that he was coming back so soon after his initial departure. That morning, she woke up early and helped her mother sweep the yard and tidy the house. She chose her nicest dress, a simple sky blue gown that complemented her smooth dark skin, and styled her hair neatly. Oluchi cooked jollof rice and chicken, whistling happily at the thoughts of Uche's visit. It almost felt like they were preparing for an official introduction, a step in Igbo custom where a suitor formally visits the girl's family. By noon, a car horn sounded at the front of their house. Uzoma's heart leaped. "He's here!" she called out, rushing to the door. Outside, Uche's shiny black car pulled up under the shade of a mango tree. Uche stepped out, looking handsome in a casual shirt and trouser, with a broad smile on his face as he spotted Uzoma emerging from the house. "Uzo!" he greeted happily, opening his arms as if he might hug her. Uzoma, beaming, stepped forward quickly to welcome him properly. "Uche, welcome! We're so happy you came." She felt an overwhelming joy at seeing him again and took a few quick steps towards him. But in the blink of an eye, everything changed. As Uche looked at Uzoma approaching, something happened. His warm smile froze, and an expression of absolute terror overtook his face. He stumbled a step backward, nearly tripping over a tree root. From Uzoma's perspective, she saw Uche's eyes widen in horror as he stared at her. It was as if he wasn't seeing her at all, or something else entirely. Uche's mouth opened in a scream, but at first no sound came out, just a choked gasp. He turned pale. Suddenly he shouted, "No, no, God forbid!" His voice was strangled with fear. Confused and alarmed, Uzoma stopped in her tracks. "Uche, what's wrong?" she cried, looking behind herself to see if maybe something was wrong. A snake or wild animal, but there was nothing unusual, just her mother hurrying out of the house with a startled look. "Uche, my son, what is it?" Oluchi called, wondering why he looked so frightened. But Uche was beyond hearing. To him, the lovely face of Uzoma had warped into something hideous and demonic right before his eyes. Instead of the kind brown eyes he knew, he saw hollow sucking sockets with glowing red points. Her smooth skin appeared charred and peeling, and her teeth looked like fangs in a grin. It was the face of a monster, the kind that haunted his worst nightmares as a child after hearing ghost stories. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. One part of his mind screamed that it was impossible, that Uzoma was a beautiful woman, not this thing. But the cause clouded his senses completely. Overwhelmed by terror, Uche did the only thing his instincts would allow. He turned and fled. "Get away from me!" he screamed, scrambling back into his car so quickly that he bruised his knee on the dashboard. The engine roared to life, and with a spray of gravel, he reversed wildly. "Uche, wait!" Uzoma shouted, bewildered and hurt, as he nearly ran into a stump while turning the car around. She started to run after him, but Oluchi grabbed her arm. "Uzoma, careful," her mother warned, worry in her eyes. They both watched in shock as Uche sped down the dirt road, dust billowing behind his car until he disappeared around a bend, leaving only the echo of the car's engine fading in the distance. For a moment, Uzoma stood rooted to the spot, heart pounding and mind racing. What had just happened? 1 minute, Uche was smiling at her, and the next, the look on his face had been pure fear, as if she had turned into something horrifying. She felt a sting of tears. "Mama, did you see that? Why did he run?" she asked in a trembling voice. Oluchi was equally puzzled and concerned. She put an arm around her daughter. "My dear, I don't know." He looked like he saw a ghost. I've never seen someone run like that. Maybe he suddenly remembered something urgent, or there was something else bothering him. But even as she said it, Oluchi knew her words sounded weak. Something was terribly wrong. Uzoma broke into sobs, her body shaking. Mama, did I do something? Why was he looking at me like that, like I was something horrible? Oluchi hugged her tightly, stroking her hair. Shh, shh, it's okay. We don't know what happened yet. Let's go inside, my child. He didn't even come in or say a word. It doesn't make sense. They went back into the house. The table was laid with a delicious meal that now sat uneaten and growing cold. Uzoma sank into a chair, face in her hands, tears slipping through her fingers. Oluchi tried calling Uche's phone, but it rang and then went unanswered. They tried again and again to no avail. Eventually, the phone was switched off. Hours passed with no word from Uche. That evening, one of Uche's relatives from the village stopped by to pick up something and casually mentioned, Uche drove past my house like the devil was chasing him. I waved, but I don't even know he saw me. He left town in such a hurry. I wonder if anything happened. Uzoma's heart ached to hear this. Uche had left the village entirely without even a goodbye. It felt as if he had abandoned her in the most confusing way possible. That night was one of the longest nights of Uzoma's life. She couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Uche's face, twisted in fear, and heard his panicked words, "Get away from me!" She looked at herself in the mirror repeatedly, seeing only her own tear-streaked yet ordinary face. Why did he look at me like that? She wondered over and over. Oluchi stayed by her side, praying quietly and reassuring her that there must be some explanation, that they would find out the truth in time. In the days that followed, word spread through the village about what had happened to Uzoma and Uche. People talked in hushed tones, and some not so hushed. At the market, Uzoma could feel the stares and hear the whispers as she passed. That's the girl, some would say, the one whose boyfriend ran away. One rumor said that Uche had discovered Uzoma was a witch who tried to cast a spell on him. Another speculated that Uzoma's beauty was a facade, that her true form, an ogbanje or evil spirit, showed itself, scaring Uche away. Each story seemed more fantastical than the last, but they all painted Uzoma as someone cursed or possessed. It got worse. In the following weeks, a couple of other young men in the village who had admired Uzoma from afar decided to approach her, hearing that the rich city boy was now out of the picture. One of them was a trader apprentice named Chike, and another a school teacher named Emeka. Each time, the pattern repeated. The man would come to speak kindly to Uzoma, perhaps walking her home from the market or bringing a small gift. And initially, things would be fine. But as soon as they showed genuine interest or intent towards her, their expression would suddenly change to fright. One of them, Chike, nearly fell over himself, running away from her, dropping the oranges he had brought to give her. Emeka actually cried out in broad daylight in the middle of the road, yelling that he had seen a mask of a demon on her face before he stumbled away, as if fleeing for his life. This incident confirmed the villagers' worst suspicions. To them, it was clear that something was supernaturally wrong with Uzoma. They nicknamed her Wanyojo, evil woman, started to follow her around. Women would pull their children away when she passed by, and men whispered that she was beautiful on the outside but carried a deadly curse. Some said her late father's spirit was angry with her. Others said she had a spirit husband from the marine world who was chasing away any human suitor. The most superstitious even suggested she should be banished or cleansed in some traditional way to save the community from whatever evil plagued her. Uzoma was devastated. She felt like her world was crumbling. She could hardly step outside without being met with fearful glances or outright gossip that rang in her ears. Her once cheerful demeanor turned to one of sorrow and anxiety. She hardly smiled anymore, and she took to wearing a shawl over her head whenever she went out, as if that might hide her cursed beauty. She didn't understand what was causing this, and that helplessness made it all the more frightening. One evening, Uzoma sat quietly in their darkened living room, the only light coming from a kerosene lamp. Oluchi was beside her, holding her daughter's hand. Uzoma's eyes were red from crying. She finally broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. Mama, what if they are right? What if there is something truly wrong with me? I'm scared. Why are men seeing something horrible when they look at me? Oluchi squeezed her hand and shook. No, my child, they are wrong. I don't know why this is happening, but I know you. You are not a witch. You are not possessed by an evil spirit. You have been dedicated to God since you were a baby. This is not your fault. But what could it be? Uzoma cried softly, tears rolling down her cheeks again. Why would Uche run? He cared about me, Mama. I saw the fear in his eyes. He looked at me like I was a monster. And those other men too. Oluchi's heart broke, seeing her daughter in such pain. She pulled Uzoma into an embrace. I don't have the answers, my dear, but I know someone who might help. You cannot just sit here and suffer. Perhaps we should seek help. We should seek help from God. My sister, your auntie Ifoma, lives in the city, in Oka. She has been telling me about her pastor, a very powerful man of God. He prays for people and they get delivered from all sorts of troubles. Maybe this is something spiritual and we need spiritual help to break it. Uzoma listened, wiping her eyes. She had always been raised in faith, and with all other explanations failing, she nodded slowly. If it's something evil doing this, I want it gone, Mama. I just want to be normal again. I want my life back. Oluchi kissed her forehead. We'll get through this, my daughter. I'll call Auntie Foma tomorrow and tell her everything. We'll go to Oka and see the pastor. God will not abandon us. That night, for the first time in weeks, Uzoma felt a tiny spark of hope. Holding on to that, she managed to sleep, praying that whatever dark cloud that had fallen her life would soon be lifted. Oluchi wasted no time. The very next day, she called her sister, Ifoma in Oka. Through tears, she explained the events that had befallen Uzoma. Auntie Ifoma was shocked and immediately urged them to come to the city. This is a serious spiritual attack, my sister, she said over the crackling phone line. Don't worry, God is greater than any cause. Come to Oka, I will take you to see Pastor Chike as soon as you arrive. Uzoma and her mother packed a small bag and left Ibuku the following morning. As they boarded the dusty intercity bus, Uzoma pulled her shawl close around her face, avoiding the curious gaze of other passengers who might recognize her. She felt a mix of anxiety and hope. Anxiety about leaving home, why so much turmoil was happening, and hope that perhaps this journey would bring an end to their nightmare. The bus ride to Oka took a couple of hours. Uzoma stared out the window as familiar village scenery slowly gave way to a busier towns, and finally to the cityscape of Oka with its busy streets, shops, and the sounds of honking cars. She hadn't traveled much before, and under different circumstances, she might have been excited to explore the city, but today, her mind was solely on finding help. Auntie Foma welcomed them warmly at her home. She was Oluchi's older sister, a stout woman with a kind face and strong arms that hugged Uzoma tightly the moment she stepped into the door. Ndo, sorry for all you have been going through, Auntie Foma said softly as she stroked Uzoma's back. You will be all right. We will pray until this evil leaves you alone. That evening, they went to Auntie Foma's church. It was a midweek service day, and though the congregation was smaller than a Sunday, the large worship hall still had dozens of people praying and singing. The church was called Mountain of Redemption Ministry, and Pastor Chike, the lead pastor, was known in the community as a devoted and fearing man of God. The moment Auntie Foma introduced Oluchi and Uzoma to him and briefly described the situation, Pastor Chike's eyes flashed with concern and determination. He was a man in his 50s, tall and with a commanding presence. The devil is a liar, he said firmly. This is clearly an attack of the enemy on this young sister's life. But have faith, for what God cannot do does not exist. We will pray and fast, and the truth will be revealed. Sister, do you believe that Jesus can deliver you? He asked Uzoma gently. Uzoma nodded, wiping a tear. Yes, Pastor, I believe. That night marked the beginning of a period of intense prayer and fasting. Pastor Chike instructed them to join the church 3-day fasting program that had conveniently started that day. Uzoma, Oluchi, and Auntie Foma all participated, eating only one light meal in the evenings and spending most of the day in prayers. During church sessions, the pastor and prayer warriors would lay hands on Uzoma, praying fervently in English and Igbo, casting out any evil presence and breaking any curses. At first, Uzoma felt nothing unusual, just her own sadness and a desperate hope that this would work. But on the second day of the fast, as the prayers intensified, something extraordinary happened. Pastor Chike was leading a deliverance prayer in his loud, booming voice. Every wicked power that has tied this girl's destiny by Holy Ghost fire, break now, he shouted. Uzoma suddenly felt a sharp pain in her stomach and doubled over, crying out. It felt as if invisible chains that had been wrapped around her were snapping one by one, causing a physical sensation. She began to sob uncontrollably, and strange, ugly thoughts flitted through her mind. Thoughts that weren't truly hers. Thoughts like, you will never be free. She's ours. And the image of a terrifying wooden mask flashed in her mind. She cried out loud, terrified of the things she was imagining. The prayer warriors encircled her, some speaking in tongues, others quoting Bible verses. Pastor Chike placed a hand on her head and commanded, every evil spirit hiding in her life, every charm or curse, by the authority in Jesus' name, I command you to leave now. Who are you and what have you done to her? Uzoma's voice suddenly erupted in a guttural tone that was not her own. She is mine, it growled. Those words coming from her shocked even Uzoma herself. It was as if some hidden presence was speaking through her without her control. I made her ugly to them. Oluchi gasped and began praying even harder, tears streaming down her face. Auntie Foma held onto her, equally stunned by praying. Pastor Chike did not relent. You unclean spirit, that is not your daughter, in Jesus' name. Release your hold and speak no more. Fire of God, consume this evil. Uzoma let out a final scream and fell to the floor, waiting. But after a minute, she became still, breathing hard. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift slightly. A quiet fell in the prayer room. Then Uzoma, still shaking, spoke softly. Pastor, I saw a mask, a wooden mask, and my uncle, I saw him bury something near our house. Pastor Chike nodded. He motioned for someone to bring water. As Uzoma sipped and regained her strength, he said gently, the Holy Spirit is revealing things. Tell us what you saw, child. Uzoma took a trembling breath and described the brief visions or impressions she had during the intense prayer. I saw my uncle, Mazude. He was at some shrine at night. There was an old man, a dibia. He burned something and made a charm. I saw a wooden mask with a scary face. Then I saw my uncle bury that mask by our house gate. And I heard a voice saying that any man who looks at me will see that mask instead of my face. Her voice broke as the realization of what that meant hit her fully. Mama, it was Uncle. Uncle Ude did this to me. Oluchi was crying, anger and sadness mixed on her face. I knew that man was wicked, but to go this far, to harm my child, oh God. Pastor Chike raised her hand. We will continue to pray. But now we have a specific revelation. This is indeed a curse placed through a demonic charm, a mask, by your uncle. But do not be afraid. The fact that it's been revealed means it can be destroyed. He turned to one of the church assistants. Brother Philip, prepare the anointing oil and the prayer team. We will break this curse now. They anointed Uzoma with oil on her forehead and poured a little into her palms. Pastor Chike led them in prayer once more, this time specifically breaking the curse of the mask charm. In the mighty name of Jesus, we nullify every power in that mask. That charm is just wood and shell. It has no power over a child of God. We break the curse of ugliness and fear placed on Uzoma. From now on, those who look upon her will see her true face and be filled with favor. Any spirit of illusion or fear will bind you and cast you out in Jesus' name. The blood of Jesus sets Uzoma free. Uzoma felt a warmth wash over her, like a gentle fire in her chest, spreading to every part of her body. She closed her eyes and saw in her mind a light breaking through darkness. When she opened her eyes again, she felt lighter, like a heavy weight had been lifted off her shoulders. A strange peace and joy took hold of her, and she found herself smiling genuinely for the first time in a long while. "Thank you, Jesus," she whispered. The small group of faithful around her broke into praises and thanksgiving. Oluchi and Ifoma hugged Uzoma tightly, all of them crying tears of relief and happiness. Pastor Chike offered a final prayer of thanks and then spoke to them. "It is done. By faith, we declare you free. Now, when you go home, you must uproot and destroy that very charm, the mask. But be careful. Sometimes when an evil work is destroyed, the one who commissioned it may face a backslash from the spirit they invoked. In other words, your uncle may experience the consequences of what he did. That is in God's hands. You must focus on giving thanks and living your life again." Uzoma and her mother thanked the pastor profusely. Auntie Ifoma insisted they spend a couple more nights in Oka to regain strength after the fasting, and also perhaps out of caution to let things play out back home first. During those days, Uzoma felt like the cloud around her had truly lifted. She even managed to call one of her friends back in the village, Amaka, to chat. Interestingly, Amaka mentioned she had seen Mazude looking rather ill recently. "He's not been himself," Amaka said. "Just yesterday, I saw him stumbling around near the market, holding his head as if he had a migraine or something." Uzoma and Oluchi exchanged knowing looks after that call, but they didn't disclose anything to Amaka yet. They planned to return the next day to Ibuku, feeling fortified by prayers and faith. Before leaving, Auntie Ifoma, ever the caring host, packed some food for them and reminded Uzoma to keep praying. "And if you need to, you can come stay with me for a while, my dear. Maybe you could even do your tailoring training here in the city once this is all over," she suggested, trying to give Uzoma something positive to look forward to. Uzoma agreed. That could be a good idea. She was keen on learning fashion design, and what better place than the city? When Uzoma and Oluchi finally took a bus back to their village, they felt ready to face whatever awaited them. Uzoma and Oluchi arrived back in Ibuku on a bright morning. The village looked the same, but to Uzoma, it felt different now, lighter, as if the air was no longer weighed down by dread. They wasted no time in carrying out Pastor Chike's instruction. That afternoon, mother and daughter quietly went to the spot by the gate, where Uzoma had seen the mask being buried in her vision. Oluchi brought a shovel, and with each thrust into the earth, Uzoma's heart thumped. After a few minutes of digging, she shoveled something out. Uzoma knelt and brushed aside the dirt with trembling hands to reveal a small wooden mask, just as she had seen in her vision, carved with a horrified, contorted face and carrying shells for eyes. Though the mask had been rendered powerless by their prayers, seeing it still sent a chill through Uzoma. This sinister thing had been hiding at their doorstep, wreaking havoc in her life. Oluchi muttered a prayer under her breath and carefully lifted the mask with a piece of cloth, not wanting to touch it directly. They took it behind the house and set it on a pile of firewood. With a match, Oluchi lit the dry wood. Together, they watched as flame engulfed the mask. The cowrie shell eyes crackled in the heat, and the cursed charm blackened and crumbled into ash. Uzoma felt a deep sense of relief and finality. It was truly over. News traveled fast in a village. A neighbor spotted a thin trail of strange smoke and saw Oluchi and Uzoma burning something. Murmurs began to spread that Oluchi had found proof of juju against her daughter. By evening, a crowd had quietly gathered near Uzoma's house, curious and concerned. Among those who came was Mazude, or rather, he staggered in, drawn by a force beyond his control. Mazude had indeed been suffering since the day the curse was broken. He had been having splitting headaches and moments of sudden blindness that terrified him. That evening, as the sun dipped low, He experienced an excruciating pain in his eyes and a compulsion in his heart to go to Oluchi's compound. It was as if his feet moved on their own. He arrived just as a few villagers were asking Oluchi what he had burnt. Oluchi, emboldened by righteous anger, held up the cloth that had wrapped the now incinerated mask. I burnt an evil charm that was buried by my door. Someone buried a cursed object to destroy my daughter's life, she said loudly enough for all to hear. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the small crowd. Who would do such a thing? A voice asked. At that moment, Mazude pushed his way through, sweating and shaking. He fell to his knee in the center of the compound. To everyone's astonishment, tears streamed from his eyes. He looked wild and broken. I am the one, Mazude croaked, raising his hands as if surrendering to an unseen enemy. It was me. I did it. A shocked silence fell. Uzoma stepped out onto the veranda, and her eyes widened at the sight of her uncle on his knees. She moved closer to her mother, who put an arm protectively in front of Uzoma. Mazude turned his face toward them, though his eyes were glazed as he couldn't see clearly. Oluchi, Uzoma, I am sorry, he cried, his voice cracked and desperate. Please forgive me. I was the one who caused Uzoma. I went to Edibia and paid him to make a charm, to make men see her as a monster. A loud murmur rose from the onlookers. Sophia Kwa, Alo, abomination. One woman spat on the ground. Others shook their heads in disgust. Mazude's own sons, who had quietly joined the gathering, looked horrified and edged away from their father in shame. Oluchi's face was pale. Hearing him confess out loud what they already knew was still overwhelming. Ude, why? She managed to ask, her voice trembling with emotion. What did we ever do to you that you would hurt Uzoma so? She's your blood. Mazude crawled a few steps forward on his knees, like a man truly humbled. I was blinded by envy and bitterness, he wept. After my brother, your husband, married you, Oluchi, I hated him. I loved you first, but he married you, and I never forgave either of you for it. I killed him. Oh God. He clutched his head as wells stole from his throat. I poisoned my own brother out of jealousy. At this revelation, the crowd erupted in chaos. People shouted in outrage. He killed Okeke, his own brother. An elder exclaimed in disbelief. Some of the women began to shout in a mix of shock and a cultural expression of lament. Others hurled insults. You wicked man! Devil! Murderer! You will die a miserable death for this. Uzoma felt as if the ground had given way beneath her. Her beloved father had not died of illness as she had always believed. He had been murdered, and by the very uncle who now sobbed in the dirt. Tears streamed down her face. Oluchi let out a cry of anguish and would have collapsed if neighbors hadn't held her up. She began sobbing loudly. My husband, oh, you took my husband from me. The pain of that old wound reopened was almost too much to bear. Mazude groveled, rubbing his face in the dust. I am sorry. I have carried that guilt for years. And I thought if you suffered, it will make it easier. But it only made me more wicked. I know Uzoma, she challenged me. She stood up to me. I wanted to ruin her happiness. That's why I cursed her. But now the charm is destroyed. I can't see clearly. My eyes. He blinked rapidly, panic crossing his features. My eyes, I can't see. He screamed suddenly. He waved his hands in front of his face as if trying to clear darkness. Everything is blurry. My eyes. The villagers backed away slightly, fearful that some rot was unfolding. Mazude's voice rose in a hysterical pitch. My tongue! He tried to speak, but now only gobbled sounds came out. He pawed at his throat and mouth, eyes bulging with terror. It was as if unseen hands had snatched away his sight and silenced his voice in the same instant. It's God's punishment, someone murmured solemnly. One by one, the villagers began to spit in Mazude's direction or on the ground, a sign of extreme contempt. You are an abomination, Ude, a neighbor said bitterly. You killed your brother and caused your own niece. Ah, what a terrible thing. Uzama's cousin, Mazude's son, looked on in horror. The older one said, Papa, what have you done? But as their father wailed unintelligibly and groped around sightlessly, the sons exchanged a frightened glance. Overcome by shame and fear of what might happen next, they turned and fled the compound. In fact, within days, it was said that his children packed their belongings and left the village entirely, unable to bear the stigma of their father's evil, or perhaps fearing that whatever befell him might follow them. No one stepped forward to help Mazude. Eventually, he managed to stagger out of Oluchi's compound, still weeping without words. Those who watched him go felt no pity, only a grim satisfaction that justice, divine or otherwise, had been served. Oluchi and Uzoma, while deeply hurt and angry, chose not to pursue further retribution. As the villagers dispersed, Oluchi said in a trembling voice, Leave him to God. And indeed, Mazude lived the rest of his days in misery, blind, mute, and abandoned. Neighbors would sometimes see him sitting alone on his porch, flies buzzing around him as he stared blankly at the sky with useless eyes. He could no longer spew hatred or plot evil. He was fed occasionally by distant relatives out of pity because his wife left, but otherwise lived in loneliness. When he died some months later, hardly anyone attended his burial. There was a collective sense that the community was better off without him. With Mazude gone and the curse lifted, Uzoma and her mother slowly built their lives. The gossip in the village died down when the truth became known. Many who had shunned Uzoma now came to apologize or express relief that she was freed from the curse. The village women especially praised Uzoma and Oluchi for enduring such trials and still remaining kind-hearted. You see, Uzoma is not a witch at all, one would say. It was a wicked uncle all along. God truly fights for the innocent. Uzoma smiled again, brighter than ever. She felt like she had been given a second chance at life. But the experiences had also made her wiser and more determined. She decided to take up Auntie Forma's offer, leaving her mother to manage things at home and promising to send money and visit often. Uzoma moved to Oka to pursue her dream of becoming a fashion designer. In Oka, Uzoma enrolled in a tailoring apprenticeship. She spent many months learning to cut, sew, and create beautiful dresses. Her dedication and creativity shone through, and soon, she was not just a student but a skilled dressmaker in her own right. After completing her training, she worked at a boutique for a while to gain experience, all the while saving money with some support from her aunt and her own savings. Uzoma eventually started a small clothing business of her own. She designed modern styles blended with traditional Igbo fabrics. Her business began to grow as customers loved her work, and she felt fulfilled and proud. Though she enjoyed city life and her new career, Uzoma never forgot her home or the people she cared about. She spoke to her mother on the phone almost every day, and every few months she would travel back to Ibuku to visit, especially during festive seasons. On one such visit, a few years after the whole ordeal, Uzoma had an unexpected encounter. She was back in Ibuku for Christmas, selling some of her newly made clothes at a village festive market. Her way of testing local interest in her designs. As she stood by her store, she saw a familiar face walking up through a crowd, Uche. Her heart gave a small leap of surprise. She had not seen Uche since that dreadful day when he had run from her. They had not spoken. He never contacted her. Later, she learned he was deeply ashamed and unsure how to make amends, so he stayed away. Uzoma herself had needed time to heal emotionally and had buried herself in work and faith, so she hadn't tried to reach out either, but she had never forgotten him. Now here he was, tall and handsome as ever, though looking a bit nervous as he approached. He must have heard from the village grapevine that Uzoma was around and doing well. Perhaps he had mustered the courage to come see her at last. Uzoma, Uche greeted softly, almost tentatively. Uzoma offered a warm, genuine smile. There was no hatred or bitterness in her heart for him. So much had happened, and she understood he had been a victim of the curse too in a way. Uche, it's good to see you, she replied kindly. They stood a little awkwardly for a moment, not sure what to say. Then, both spoke at once. How have you been? Uzoma asked, just as Uche said, I'm so sorry. They paused. Then Uzoma gestured with a small laugh. You first. Uche took a deep breath, looking deeply into her eyes. Eyes he now saw were just as beautiful and gentle as he remembered, with no trace of anything frightening. Uzoma, I owe you an apology, a big one. I'm so sorry for abandoning you that day and after. I swear, I didn't understand what was happening. I thought I saw something terrible. It wasn't you. I know that now. I was just so scared and I reacted badly. By the time I realized I must have been under a spell or something, I felt too ashamed to face you. I heard later about what your uncle did. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you through all that. His voice quavered with sincerity and regret. Uzoma blinked back a bit of moisture in her eyes and shook her head gently. Uche, I don't blame you. You were one of the first victims of that cause. I can only imagine how frightening it was. I never got to ask, what did you see that day? Uche shuddered slightly at the memory. I saw what looked like your face turned to something demonic, a horrifying mask. It was like my worst nightmare come alive. I know now that it was an illusion, but at that moment, it felt so real. I'm sorry I didn't have the strength to stay. Uzoma reached out and touched his arm reassuringly. It's alright. I was hurt, yes, but I know you didn't do it to hurt me on purpose. That whole time was so confusing for all of us, she sighed. I'm just glad it's over. I'm glad to see you are doing well. Uche looked relieved at her touch and forgiveness. He smiled for the first time in the conversation. Thank you for understanding. You truly have a kind heart, Uzoma. He then glanced at her store and the array of colorful dresses and shirts. I heard you have become a big fashion designer in the city, he said with genuine admiration in his tone. These are beautiful. Did you make all of this? Uzoma nodded, excited to talk about her passion. Yes, I did. It's something I have always wanted to do, and I finally got the chance to learn and start my own business. It's been going well, really. They fell into easy conversation after that, catching up on the years gone by. Uche had also progressed in his career, getting a promotion at his engineering firm in Enugu. He told her that not a day had passed that he hadn't think about her and wonder if she was alright. Uzoma shared some of her experience in design school and living in Oka. As the sun set and the Christmas lights began to twinkle around the market, Uche helped Uzoma pack up her store. Before they parted ways that evening, he asked, a bit shyly, can we keep in touch, Uzo? I would really like us to be friends again, or maybe even see where things go, if you are open to it. Uzoma looked at him thoughtfully. In truth, her feelings for Uche, once so intense, had calmed over the years, but seeing him now, she felt the warmth and possibility rekindle. She wasn't in a rush, but she was happy to give it a chance. She gave a small nod and a bright smile. I would like that, Uche. He grinned, looking both happy and a little relieved. They exchanged phone numbers. Both had smartphones now, and times had changed a bit in the intervening years, and agreed to meet up while they were both in the village for the holidays. That night, Uzoma reflected on everything that had happened, from losing her father to her uncle's oppression, to the love and evil and deliverance she experienced. Life had tested her in ways she never expected, but she came out stronger and wiser. She climbed into bed in her mother's house, listening to the distant sound of villagers singing carols under the starry sky. Her mother was already asleep, snoring softly in the next room. Uzoma whispered a prayer of gratitude for her freedom, for her thriving new career, for her mother's love, for the supportive aunt and the pastor who helped save her, and even for the chance to reconnect with Uche on new terms. She knew the future was not certain, but she had faith that with courage and kindness, she could face whatever came next. In the gentle darkness, Uzoma closed her eyes with a smile on her lips. The cursed days were behind her, and a bright new chapter was beginning, one filled with hope, love, and the hard-earned wisdom that, in the end, good will always overcome evil. The story teaches that evil may win for a moment, but truth and courage win in the end. Envy and greed destroy families, while kindness, prayer, and hard work lift people up. We learned not to judge by gossip because hidden forces can twist what people see. Stand up for your loved ones, seek help when trouble is bigger than you, and trust that justice will come, sometimes through confession, sometimes through the consequences that follow wicked acts. Finally, forgive if you can, or set boundaries, rebuild your life, and use your gifts to create a better future. Thank you so much for watching this amazing story about Uzoma on African Stories by V. If you liked it and felt inspired with our journey, please show your support by clicking the like button, sharing with your friends, and leaving a comment below. To see more interesting stories and learn about different cultures, subscribe to African Stories by V and do not forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Your support means a lot and helps us bring more stories to you. Until we meet again, stay connected, stay inspired, and keep smiling.